There was a 100-pound robot protected by tables, like school desks.
In a school run by nuns.
Hey, it looked like a pretty good fight, I thought. Getting a few flips in on him.
I knew we were going to get flipped at least once, 15, whatever.
I mean, last year, my team started calling me First Miss Jake. In at least of that match, I did pretty good hitting him on that first one.
Today, we're talking with Witch Doctor and Hydra.
On this episode of
Behind the Battle.
We're on with Jake Ewart of Team Waiachi with Hydra. Hi, everyone. We're here with Andrea and Mike from Team Witch Doctor. Just to kind of get started, I want to know, Jake, can you tell me how you got into robotics?
How I did it was from Dad. My dad, Terry, he went to BattleBots back in 2002, and he seen it on TV, and he's like, I mean, I could do that. So he put his engineering to good use there, and he came back and he actually won the Giant Nut the very first year that he was out. So I mean, that's how I got started, just coming to the shop. Dad does it, so now it's just ingrained in us, really. That's what we do now.
That's super cool. And you guys aren't just working with just one robot. Team Waiachi's got several under their belt.
A lot of builders, like Polly and Byteforce, they want to build different things all the time. They don't want to come back with the same thing over and over. So what we like to do is we come with different options. Plus, it gives us as brothers more options to drive. I am doing Hydra, and my brother Reese is doing Fusion. And that thing is... I'm actually pretty afraid of going up against that if I would have to. And then Sao is coming back, and it's it's kind of a legacy bot at this point. There is things we could do to make it better, but I think we're just gonna let her, stay where she's at.
Let's talk Hydra. Where did Hydra come from?
Hydra came from watching other flippers, including our own, with Warrior and the Warrior clan not being able to hit the ceiling. So we decided we wanted to go away from pneumatics, go with the hydraulic form, and then we can hopefully hit the ceiling. And that was our goal through last season and this season, is that we were trying to send 250 pounds up to the ceiling.
Can you describe the difference between the pneumatics and hydraulics?
Pneumatics is squishy, right? The air can compress, it can move. Hydraulics usually can't. I mean, it's a solid force and it doesn't compress very much. So if you move the material, it's going to stay where it's at. We have to move about a monster can worth of fluid in 1/10 of a second. So it's not a lot of fluid, but it does need to move fairly fast. So we need to have big valves in our hydraulic systems, like 120 gallon minute valves. So they're pretty big, they're pretty bulky. I mean, just the hose alone is probably 5 pounds just to get it to the cylinder. So there's a lot of weight in hydraulics. Our very first match, they were actually surprised because they didn't know what was making the sound. And then when they replayed the video back, they actually seen when we flip, our bottom reaction force were hitting the ground and it was thumping. And it was actually shaking the arena when it hit. So it's pretty instantaneous, and it's got a lot of power behind it right away.
I want to know how you guys both got started in robotics.
I'll go first. So I actually started building BattleBots in high school. I was really lucky that I went to a school that had a really big BattleBots program. Back then, there was a collegiate version, an educational version called BattleBots IQ. And it was kind of an unusual place to start building robots because I went to a Catholic all-girls school, which is where you think about, fighting robots. But I was really lucky. About a quarter of the girls were involved, so it was a really big deal. There were the baseball players and the debaters and the robot builders. So it was super normal thing to do.
So you were fighting robots in school. That's really awesome.
Yeah, when I went to the orientation for my high school, in the chemistry lab, the students had taken all the tables and put them down on their side and created sort of, pseudo battle box. And that was my first impression of the school. I saw these girls with controllers in their hands and a painted, rusty robot that was moving. And, if they could do it, then I was about to do that as soon as I got into that school.
There was a 100-pound robot protected by tables, like school desks?
In a school run by nuns.
My story is not as cool as that. So when I was growing up, BattleBots was on TV, the Comedy Central days. In its early 2000s, it went off air. And that was about the time I went to high school and kind of forgot about it. It was just something that I watched at night or whatever. Getting into college, a friend of mine was like, hey, they have this robotics program. You want to go check it out? So we walk into the meeting room and we see this like rusty, janky, like poorly welded thing on the floor. We're like, what is this? And the guy's like, oh yeah, this is a battle bot, you know, and he starts explaining the whole thing. And I'm like the TV show? And he's like, oh yeah, like the TV show, but these are 120-pound robots. And I was like, oh, you know, my childhood like reared its head, and I was like, whoa, I got to do this. The following year, you know, we were there first day of school. I was like, all right, you know, where's the robotics club? Like, who do we have to talk to get involved in this?
By any chance, was that BattleBots IQ collegiate level some sort of iteration of Witch Doctor? And
it was a 120-pound version of Witch Doctor basically, and that's where we came up with the robot, the overall design of the robot, and also the name.
Yeah, I'd say 2010 was the first Witch Doctor. I guess this is our 10-year anniversary. I hadn't thought about that.
Happy Witch Doctor anniversary. Now it's time to talk about the fight with Hydra. No talk? Talk to me. What's going on? What happened?
Oh, you tell me. It looked like a pretty good fight, I thought. You know, getting a few flips in on him. He started smoking like fairly early in the match. I mean, he did get that one good hit on my front end, but it was made to get ripped off, really. There's only so much strength we can have into the frame of how we hold on the wedgelets, so we made the wedgelets just thin enough so that they would break off and not wreck the pin, the titanium pin that runs through it, or the frame that's underneath. And then going around the match, I mean, a lot of times you'll see me just sitting underneath them. That's just waiting for me to get pumped back up so that I can flip again. If I had a pneumatic system, that wouldn't necessarily be a problem, but I'm going for unlimited flips, so I can have as many flips as I want instead of I can only have 10 good flips or something like that.
And then you have flips like the very first one. Like you're talking about wanting to touch the ceiling.
That's because the pump is fully pumped up coming into that first hit. I mean, last year my team started calling me First Miss Jake because I always used to miss that very first flip, right? And that's my most powerful one, my guaranteed most powerful one, and I always missed it. So coming into this year, my goal was I can't miss that first one. I gotta, you know, get that trigger on properly this time. So I mean, in at least of that match, I did pretty good hitting him on that first one.
What was kind of your strategy going into this Hydra fight?
Well, to not get flipped the first, definitely part of the strategy, but it didn't work out that way. We watched all of Hydra's fights, obviously, from last year, you know, and their test videos, and the Waiachis post some stuff on Facebook, and their robot wasn't very quick last year. And, you know, turns out this year they switched to like a brushless drive system. So the robot's way faster and way more maneuverable, and they definitely brought their A game for sure. I knew we were going to get flipped at least once, you know, 15 times, once, 15, whatever. It really just came down to surviving those flips and then being able to get a couple of hits on Hydra somewhere, anywhere. You know, within the first 40 seconds of the match, one of our two discs, the tooth shears off. And basically that makes the weapon out of balance. So she kept the weapon spinning, but because of the imbalance, basically the robot's shaking violently. I couldn't drive very well. So we're trying to recover from that and not really having a great strategy. You don't really have a strategy for what happens when your weapon breaks.
Did you think Witch Doctor was going to hold out?
Yeah, that was the plan. Obviously, plan A is to not get flipped, and plan B is to survive the flips you do get. You mentioned that we see a lot of smoke from Witch Doctor, but nothing really quite stops working. And all that smoke that you saw came out of our batteries. It got to the point where the shock was just so much for the lithium polymer batteries that they started smoking. So when batteries fail like that, it's not really a problem right away, but it's a time bomb. You know, you're against the clock at that point.
Well, the other problem with the battery smoking is it looks really bad to the judges. You know, halfway through that whole thing, the arena is practically filled with smoke. So the judges are looking at Witch Doctor. They're not looking at Hydra, who's not moving. And in the last 30 seconds of the match, Hydra barely moved at all. The battery's on fire. It looked worse than it actually was. You know, like Andreas, everything was working 100%, despite it just bellowing smoke out everywhere.
It was a lot of smoke.
I mean, the end of the match, it's looking not great for me. You know, I'm not driving too much, but if you watch the full thing while they're actually looking at the whole time, you can see that I'm getting stuck on the floor, and it was a big debacle up there with me yelling between me and the refs saying that I'm stuck on the floor, and he's saying I can't move, and he couldn't see because of all the smoke. So I mean, that's why it went the full distance as it was, and they weren't counting me out because they actually seen that I was controlling it. I was just getting stuck.
Is that kind of where the battle of low ground gets a little dicey, like the con of low ground?
Definitely. If I'm getting stuck on the floor, I can't go where I want to. So there's definitely a give and take. Nobody can get underneath me, but I can't move around the box, willy-nilly as I want to. So
that's a little nerve-wracking, though. I can imagine, like, it's one thing to be the king of the low ground battle and have to worry about getting stuck.
There's a lot of times where I'm just going to sit in a square and I'm just going to turn. Just keep the bot facing them. If I get stuck, in a particular square and I can't just get out of it, I'm not going to back up and try to run away, and I'm going to just keep the front end. And eventually the fight's going to have to come to me anyway. So, I mean, why move?
What do you do when you're not battling bots?
Right now, we're just running the shop. We have from meat processing plants to automotive industry to movie props. We kind of do a little bit of everything here.
Can you tell me about what movie props you've made?
We've made some Saw stuff. There's definitely been some. Yes. There's definitely been some props that we've manufactured that have been in the Saw movies.
Your family has a shop where all this stuff kind of comes together?
Yeah, we just have a small manufacturing shop. We only have 10 employees, but through our contacts through BattleBots throughout the years, a lot of these guys come back to us now after meeting us at bots or whatever, and then they have us start coming up with companies that they have made or started up, and then they come back to us to get more parts made too. I mean, looking at it overall, I mean, it's a good thing we went to BattleBots because it is a big part of our company now where all these people have come from.
What do you guys do when you're not battling bots?
We spend a lot of time talking about robots and building robots. But personally, I like going to the theater a lot. I'm a big musical theater fan. I don't sing or dance or act, but I just love going to the theater and tormenting Mike with show tunes at home. Obviously, with the pandemic, I haven't been able to go to the theater in a long time. I actually watched 2 shows the week before they closed down theaters, including Hamilton. So I had a really good week before they closed it down to hold me over.
One of my hobbies is I have a drift car. It's a 1990 Nissan 240SX. I do some competitions, but mainly we just do open track events, travel around the state of Florida competing and driving with some friends of mine, and just kind of like another expensive, dumb hobby that kind of like BattleBots, you kind of almost hit your car against other people a little bit.
Over the quarantine, we actually bought an ambulance and built it out as an RV. And we actually drove 2 BattleBots in our ambulance. So that's been a really, really big pandemic hobby that we've had this year.
Is it witch doctored out, like on the outside? Is it? No,
not yet. But so there's, we kind of want to keep it looking like an ambulance. And I'm kind of worried about people thinking we're real witch doctors if we have a witch doctor rescue vehicle.
Jake, it has been awesome talking to you. We cannot wait to see what you guys do the rest of the season, and we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, we're looking forward to the rest of the season. I'll see you guys later.
I wish you guys well, and I hope you stay safe, and we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks, Tyler. It's been a blast chatting.
Join us next time for more exclusive interviews on the HEXBUG YouTube channel, and make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss a second of the action. Thanks for watching.